Disappointed with God, part 3. So part 1, we saw that, and all of a sudden I can't think of it, but yeah, we saw that when we're disappointed with God, when things don't go the way we were hoping that we're getting more of God. So if God has not answered your prayer the way you would like him to, it's because he's going to give you more of himself. And then part 2, we saw how we are entitled as people, as human beings, as Christians. We're like that big brother in the prodigal son story where we feel like God owes us something, even though he has given us everything through the life and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So today, I want to talk about how when you're going through a difficult time, you're not being punished. It is not a punishment. And we, sadly, for years and for generations, we've perpetuated this idea of, oh, God is just punishing anyone that's going through a hard time. For example, Job. If you've never heard of Job, Job was a guy who had lots of sons and daughters, lots of wealth. In the Bible, it's a story in the Bible. He had a wife, he had everything going for him, and then those things are taken away because Satan, Lucifer, asks God, he accuses God, that he says to God that Job is only worshiping God because he has all these things. And God is like, no, actually he worships me because like he loves me. And Satan is like, no, that is not true. And he asks for permission to inflict, to take away these things from Job, and to inflict pain and whatever. And God allows him. And the book of Job and the story of Job is such an important book in understanding the great controversy, the great war that is going on between good and evil. And yet again, I will do a video about that. Well, as much of it as I understand. And but from this book of Job, we see that Satan is accusing God of always looking after his people and whatever. And we see Satan kind of bad mouthing Job, and saying that Job is only worshiping you because of this. So anyway, God allows it, but says, do not touch his soul, do not kill him. And so Satan comes, and like Job's sons and daughters are killed, and he loses everything, literally loses everything. And his friends are like, what have you done? You're not righteous, you're not this, you're not that. And Job is like, listen, like, I've been praying, I've been going to church, I've been doing everything. I sing, I preach for Jesus, I do whatever. And, he's defending himself, and, but they don't believe him. People don't believe him. And it gets so bad that his wife is just like, listen, just curse God and die, because like literally look at your life. And yeah, oh, sister girl must have been so stressed out watching her husband sitting there covered in boils, and like they had nothing, and left, the children were gone, and all of that. Anyway, so where am I going with this? You're not being punished. And at the end of that story, before I get to what I really want to say, at the end of that story, God returns everything to Job, and Job is vindicated. But it's such, so he gets all these things coming at him from different angles, and he stays faithful. He holds on to his faith. But he gets to a point, obviously, where he's disappointed with God and he starts questioning. And God shows up and he's like, who does this and who holds the worlds and who does this and who does that? And so they have this conversation, and it seems as if God has been really harsh with him. But he's not. Well, from my understanding of it, he's trying to show him, that God, yes, these things have come to you, and yes, it seems like I've abandoned you and whatever, and all of that, but I am still the one in control. So even in the bad times, I'm still the one in control. And God actually, at the end of all of this, repays him, gives him back more wealth and more children and more whatever. I don't know if he got a new wife. I should read that story. I haven't read it in a while. And yeah, so it's easy when, especially when you're a Christian and you have been faithful, right? You feel you've been faithful, you've done everything right, and yet everything seems to be falling left, right, and center. Nothing seems to be working out. And you can have some people, some Christian people, yes, even some Christian pastors who imply that you have not been faithful, and that is why things are not going the way you want them to or the way you need them to. And it's so easy to feel like you're being punished. So let me tell you about this book I've been reading. It's called The Crushing by T.D. Jakes. Some of y'all are going to say that he preaches prosperity gospel. I don't think so, because this whole book is all about suffering and being crushed by God and going through this difficult moment. But it's, here's so many good lines. And the chapter today that I read was about how becoming great, becoming the person that God intended for you to be, will cost you everything. It will even cost you yourself. So perceptions of yourself, who you thought you were, the things that were familiar, the things that felt comfortable, it will cost you all those things, because you're going to be great when God's finished working with you. And so God will often allow situations, allow circumstances to come, because it is in those difficult moments, as he calls them, the crushing vats. So when you're in, grapes are being crushed, when they're being crushed to produce wine, to produce that new wine, that's when the change, that's when the growth comes in us as human beings. So we are the grapes. So, Jesus is the where the branches, Jesus is the vine, but we're supposed to produce fruit, we're supposed to be fruit as well. Anyway, so this crushing happens, and it's in the crushing, it's in the breaking, that we get to be the people that God has intended for us to be. When the grapes have been crushed, the skin is taken away and the juice comes. So the skin is being taken away, so the bad stuff is being taken away and the good stuff is being produced. And also, but chapter 4 of this book was just, I've cried so much reading this book. But chapter 4, when he talks about punishment and how you're not being punished. And I did not realize that for the last 2 years, since graduating and not being employed, I felt like I was being punished. Like life was so hard in America, being in the seminary, having my kids. Yeah, I should have done my family planning better, but you know what? Whatever. I wanted to have my babies before I was 30. But feeling like I was punished. And God, by reading that chapter, challenged my theology. Because, like, why would God punish me? Like, what's he, like, he's a loving God, he's a kind God. And I'm not saying that God is not a God who judges and a God of justice, but his justice and his judgment is always righteous. Yeah, anyway, so, but I'm gonna read you my response, because I cried so much a few days ago, or sometime last week. And anyway, you're not being punished. You feel like you're being punished, but you're not. God has no, that's not how God works. He doesn't punish you into submission. I think we look at God as like this sadistic parent who likes to like torture their children into submission, and that is not God. That is not the way of God. If that was his way, he would not have sent Jesus. Jesus would not have come to die, to live and die in this cruel world for us, for our sin. He wouldn't be sending the Holy Spirit to constantly convict us of our sins and to draw us close to himself. Like, that is not my God. Anyway, yeah, so he talks so much about how pruning and this crushing process of God making something out of us is not punishment. Yeah, oh, and then, one of the, I really need to do this before the 15 minutes. Instagram only allows 15 minutes. Anyway, the pruning always happens after the harvest. So the pruning is where a tree has to be cut, different branches or whatever have to be cut so that they can produce more fruit the next time. And the pain, the stuff that we go through, right, often will come after a harvest. So for me, my pruning came after the harvest of finishing seminary. And yeah, so I finished seminary and I needed the pruning. God needed the pruning because he was gonna do a work in me. And yeah. Oh, so, and he says here, you're part of a select group of people who have been chosen by the vine dresser to be pruned because you've done something that the other branches have not. You have fulfilled your purpose. So actually, God allowing these things to come to you like Job, it's because he had fulfilled his purpose, and God wanted to take him to the next level, to the next part of his growth. So me graduating from seminary and persevering through all that I went through, like, I had fulfilled my purpose. I felt the call to go to ministry, and I dropped everything, and me and my hubby left everything. And for 3.5 years, we were in this foreign country, some months not knowing what we were going to do for finances at all. And yet God came through. So, yeah, anyway, let me read you my response to this, because it encapsulates the whole chapter. Pruning always comes after a harvest. I thought I had failed you. I thought I had done something wrong. I thought it was my race and my gender. I thought it was me. I thought it was because I talk too much. I thought it was because I'm too emotional. I thought it was because I share too much. I thought I had failed you. I thought I had done something wrong, but it was you, wasn't it, God? Pruning me after the harvest. You pruning me after graduation. You pruning me after I had fulfilled my purpose, your purpose for me. Pruning is not punishment. It is affirmation. Affirmation that I am obedient, that you are obedient. Affirmation that I'm still following you. The enemy wants me to think the opposite, and I have allowed him to succeed. Even after, but I know better now. I know that you are pleased. Even in my marriage, I know you're pleased. Pruning comes after every baby that I've had and after every step of faith. Thank you for the remnant that remains in me. Thank you for the fruit that will grow out of it. Thank you for my failed life. You don't measure success the way I do. Yes, it hurts, but keep pruning. I don't like it, but keep pruning. They will laugh and scoff, but keep pruning me, because I trust you and I have confidence in you, even though I don't see you. Prune away, God. Prune away. You're not being punished. You are not being punished. Pruning always comes after harvest. Bye.